Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna and you're watching A News. We begin our bulletin today with some breaking news. Israel has bombed Doha in an assassination attempt on high-ranking Hamas officials. There is yet no official word on casualties. Qatar has strongly condemned the attack, calling it a cowardly act. Al Jazeera is reporting that the Hamas negotiation delegation was the target of the strike, quoting a Hamas source, while Al Arabiya reports that Hamas chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya has been killed in the strike on the Qatari capital. Israeli Channel 12 cited an Israeli official saying the US President Donald Trump gave the green light for the attack. The footage of the attack shared by journalists that is circulating the social media appears to show the blast happened in the Qatara district in Doha. Qatar has been hosting negotiations between Israel and Hamas over a ceasefire proposal, with the latest round focusing on a US-backed proposal. To discuss this further, we have our Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Orkan Amashov, joining us in the studio, and Klaus Jurgens is a political analyst with Economy First Limited from London. Klaus, welcome to the program. Orkan, thank you for joining us this hour.
Thank you, Tilak. Indeed, what happened is extraordinarily important. Although we know that Israel has been targeting a couple of Arab countries, the Hamas bases there, what happened just recently is extraordinary by any measure, because Qatar is involved in the negotiations. It's one of the mediators. Although it is not unheard of Israel targeting Hamas officials and members, this event, in terms of its scale, in terms of its magnitude, looks very, very different. And Klaus, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. My first question to you, although, as I mentioned, it is not unheard of Israel to put into practice this sort of measures in terms of targeting Hamas officials or any other member of any organization that Israel is considering as terrorist organization, were you surprised by the scale of it, and what do you make of the juncture that was in the midst of the negotiations? And we know that in Qatar, the Hamas officials were considering this US-backed proposal. What do you make of the juncture?
Well, thanks for having me. It is indeed a very difficult topic to comment about, but I am very outspoken about this. I think all the efforts many countries are now engaged in are almost 65,000 innocent lives lost too late. And I'm not saying better late than never. No, it is too late. Now, someone somehow must actually say that regardless of what happened in the Second World War, a state that emerges out of catastrophe has no right to inflict the same catastrophe upon other people. So this is my first point. Secondly, I'm absolutely shell-shocked. While preparing for our show now, I said, look, yes, you can send a drone, you can send a missile here and there, but what would happen if someone Israel doesn't like all of a sudden is living in Paris, Brussels, London, or Berlin, God forbid? What would they do? Would they send a killer commando or something, and then hoping that their governments actually back it and say whatever Israel does is right? No, the scale of it is amazing. And my biggest worry is that this will ignite many, many more fires in the Middle East, because Doha will not simply sit and watch what is going on. Second point, if I still have half a minute, exactly, the ceasefire, hopefully one-day peace and then a two-state solution negotiations were almost underway. And of course, this is not in Israel's interest. Yes, but if you want to have a two-state solution, at some stage you have to talk with Hamas, because what happens now will only do one thing. Hamas will gain even more support in the Palestinian population. It is an absolute idiotic move by Israel. I'm sorry for my very, very outspoken words. You can quote me.
I just want to understand one point. It's about Israeli logic behind these actions. On one side, Israeli officials, delegation is negotiating with Hamas, which is considered terrorist organization by Israel, by many allies of Israel. This is one thing. And simultaneously, whilst negotiating with Hamas, Israel is also clearly talking about exterminating its members. How do two things that I've mentioned actually appear to be in line? Is it How would you explain Israeli logic behind this moment wherein you're negotiating with somebody you also try to exterminate eventually?
And mind you, I just want to add to that, Klaus. I said earlier in my intro that Israel said they got the green light from the United States. I mean, how credible is this? This statement sounds so outrageous to me when they're the mediators of the ceasefire, and yet Israel says they got the green light.
Yes, I'm a little bit, dear Dilek, I'm a little bit hesitant to actually acknowledge, not yours, of course, but what emanates from the White House. I would be very surprised if Donald Trump or his inner circle actually green-lighted this attack, because he needs his own legacy. And whatever he thinks will be a two-state solution, or what happens in Israel and with Palestine, he would need to have a success story. That's what he's trying to do with Ukraine. I would be very surprised if he really green-lighted this, because making enemies around the world was not what Donald Trump actually had in mind when he said, "Make America great again." He actually wanted to have a new America, and this would make enemies, first of all, already did, if that would be true, in Doha, but not only in Doha, in the entire region. I'm a little bit skeptical to actually say, did he really green-light it or not, until I have the confirmation.
But the initial reaction coming from US Embassy was not in the direction of condemning or not condemning. They simply state the facts that they heard about what happened. One more question about the international reaction. I mean, US might have green-lighted it. We don't know. We need to hear we need to get more information from the White House. But what's about the regional actors, Turkey in particular, which has got very strong, intimate, close relationship with Qatar, and many other actors have cultivated good relations. What will be the reaction, regional reaction, to what Israel did in a very cavalier fashion?
Well, talk about Turkey, if I may, for 1 minute. You said, where's the logic behind what Israel did today? Now, Israel would not be completely illogic if they would ever dare to attack Turkey in the same way, because then NATO would have to use and trigger Article 5, and that would be probably the end of Netanyahu's regime. I'm very sorry to be so outspoken about this. But of course, everyone here is worried, because people rightfully say, look, if this happens in Doha, what might happen just across the border? Could it be Bulgaria? Could it be Cyprus? Could it be Egypt? Could it be one day us? People will be alarmed, and rightfully so. And I would discreetly say the Palestinian people one day have to decide. And Mahmoud Abbas said it only today, that there should be elections, and the Palestinian people must decide their way forward, and then have their own rightfully justified member of the United Nations state. And terror attacks against, even if it was a temporary leadership, even if it would be described by some as terrorists, even if some of the Palestinians would say they rightfully defended us, there must be peace. And what happened today is exactly the opposite strategy. Yes, of course, Turkey is alarmed. Everyone is alarmed in the region. You're absolutely right.
And Klaus, what are the potential ramifications for the Israeli strikes in Doha for regional stability? As you very well said earlier, that this could ignite a lot of fires in the Middle East.
Splendid isolation, Dilek, if I may say so. Yes, they are on the way to create the greater Israeli Middle East, and they think they can get away with it. But look what happened in Spain. Look at Mexico. Look at everything. Look at Belgium. Look at mass demonstrations. The public no longer buys into the Israeli rhetoric. Some of the leaders, of course, still do, and some of the lobbyists. And again, I'm very outspoken about this. You know, I'm following Armenian, Azerbaijani events for many, many years, and now there is peace. And I know what a negative lobby can achieve. Not talking about your fine nation, but another one. And the Israeli lobby is actually pocketing politicians all around the world, in particular in some European capitals and Washington. And this not only for 1 year, for one decade, but for many decades. And only today the British government said in a letter, we don't really believe in it, that it is actually genocide. So you have historians And historians are not biased normally, particularly not when you have 20, 30, 40, 50 historians. So I would say yes, if the definition of genocide exists, then this is a case. So yes, Israel thinks they get away with everything. But Spain is a good example. Italy will be a good example. Other nations. And eventually, if Europe wakes up and says, look, enough is enough, you can't bomb hospitals or children or anything, then the entire situation will change. But as I've said, unfortunately, almost 65,000 innocent dead people too late. I would say Israel is hoping for the best. They're still sending tourists to Europe. They're still playing in football matches. They're still being part of UEFA and FIFA. And apparently no one cares. One day, I hope we will care. And I include myself in this, being a German.
It's extraordinary what you said, Klaus. But also one more question about the way Israel perceives the extent of which that is perfectly possible. We know that in the Israeli thinking, as long as the modern Israeli government is concerned, a two-state solution is a mere remote possibility which may never come true, actually, according to the logic of the current government. But also what we noticed over the past couple of years, they do not treat Hamas as an agent of Palestinian people. They treat it as a terrorist organization. The question that many people are asking now, are these actions cumulatively, but in particular bearing in mind that there is no massive opposition to Israel in practical sense? We know the European Union is not very consolidated. We know that they got strong US espousal. We know that regional actors are not able in any way, in any measurable way, limit the actions taken by Israel in Gaza. Does this actually lead to the death of this idea of two-state solution at this juncture? And also we know that Palestinian Authority officials are not allowed to attend the UN General Assembly session, which is another moment of some symbolic significance.
Well, I saw a map only yesterday that there is one option that there will be not a two-state solution, but 4 or 5 enclaves in the middle of Israeli territory. That is apparently what some hardliners in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem really want to see. Not a two-state solution, but just a couple of enclaves where people have to exit like in a concentration camp. Sorry to use that word, but this is exactly, as a German, what is getting so deep into my heart. The Israelis should have learned that the Holocaust that happened so sadly on the hands of the Nazis and fascists can never be repeated anywhere in the world. But some psychologists would say, look, exactly because it happened to them, one day they would try to seek revenge. And of course, they can't seek revenge versus Germany. The only revenge they can seek, the soft option, please pardon me for this word, but their soft option was Palestine, Gaza, and God forbid the West Bank. They can't go any further. And they should not even go there. Now, yes, you mentioned the United Nations. You mentioned the international community. Look, I have to put it like this, because then I think I sound much more plausible. I grew up with this guilt complex. Yes, of course. Everyone grew up with the guilt complex. But I myself, I'm not ashamed of saying it, I went on an official trip to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, a few decades ago, and I was very warmly welcomed and tried to build peace and said, look, we have a new German generation. We know what we did, but now peace must come. And even then, even all those years back, I met Israelis with machine guns in the street, and they say, it's only the Palestinians, it's only Palestine, it's only the Palestinians threatening our existence. And then I said, I didn't say it in public because I didn't want to have any trouble at the time. Then I left the country. But it is their own, not a guilt complex like we Germans still have it, die Staatsräson at the same time. But they have something in their mind which is, you mentioned the word logic, which is totally illogic. And one day we have to go back to October the 7th, and we must find out what really happened. Yes, of course, there was a Hamas attack, and I'm not whitewashing it. God forbid, no one can kill people, of course not. But we have to go back years before, when Israel was actually exerting violence on Palestinian citizens as well. and discreetly European countries shy away from this and don't want to acknowledge is always say Israel is always right, always right, always right. Today, I hope, will mark an end to this. It's a wake-up call, not only to countries in the region, but it's a wake-up call to our democracies to say enough is enough. And I fully understand your own Fine Nations approach, the bridge builder. And you said actually, yes, we have to talk with the Israelis. We have to engage them somehow in dialogue, and there must be a ceasefire, and then there must be peace. And this is the right approach. Many European nations should follow. But it's a very sad date. I'm really worried what happens in the next 24, 48 hours.
Okay. Klaus, thank you so much for joining us on the program and shedding light on the latest breaking news that we just brought our viewers. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Absolute pleasure myself. Thank you.
And for the time being, we'll carry on with other news stories making headlines around the world. French Prime Minister Francois Bayrou formally submitted his resignation to President Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace on Tuesday, a day after losing a parliamentary confidence vote. Bayrou's budget plan, which aimed to cut billions in government spending, was rejected by lawmakers in a 364 to 194 vote, forcing the collapse of his government. Macron, now seeking his fifth prime minister, in under 2 years, is expected to name a successor in the coming days. Until then, Bayrou and his ministers will continue to carry out their duties in a caretaker capacity. As the crisis in Paris deepens, Emmanuel Macron now faces the task of finding a fifth leader in under 2 years. But experts warn that none of the likely scenarios would deliver a stable majority, making it harder for Macron to push through his deficit-cutting plans.
France has been plunged into fresh political turmoil after the fall of Prime Minister Francois Bayrou in a dramatic confidence vote in the National Assembly. On Monday, lawmakers voted 364 to 194 against his government, forcing him to present his resignation to President Emmanuel Macron. Bayrou was Macron's fourth prime minister in less than 2 years. His defeat leaves the president searching for a fifth, highlighting the instability that has marked his second term.
Je trouve qu'on a montré
I think we have shown an image of the Republic that is honourable and active. And so, from that point of view, I wanted, on behalf of the government, to thank the National Assembly and, as Prime Minister, to thank the members of the government.
The confidence vote was tied to France's strained finances. Last year's deficit was almost double the EU's 3% limit, and public debt has risen to nearly 114% of GDP. Bayrou warned of an existential threat if nothing was done. His plan for 2026 included scrapping 2 national holidays and freezing pensions and welfare to save €44 billion. But opponents from both the left and the far right united against him, accusing Bayrou of masking Macron's responsibility for the crisis. Many analysts called it political suicide, noting he had no need to call the early vote.
I think we will not have a public debt crisis in France this autumn or next year or even in 2027. But I think that if we don't act now to reduce the public deficit, it could happen that in a few years, maybe 10 years, 15 years, we could be in a situation quite comparable to Greece and with a real public debt crisis, which means that the investor worldwide doesn't trust the government anymore and doesn't want to lend money to the French government, which leads ultimately to a public debt crisis.
On the streets of Paris, reactions were mixed. Some citizens voiced frustration at the constant changes at the top, while others admitted they were uncertain what to expect next. Many said they felt little confidence that any new prime minister would make a real difference.
I'm relieved, but after that, it's true that I'm particularly worried about the aftermath of events, how things will evolve in this very strange context. I've lived in France for 17 years, and this is something I've never seen before. Political discourse based on hatred, and that's it. So what we're experiencing now is really, it's a little scandalous.
I'm waiting to see what happens if they manage to find someone. But in any case, I don't think it's a very useful decision, and it brings more uncertainty than clarity to French politics today.
For Macron, the options are limited. He could name another centrist, turn to a moderate socialist, or choose a technocrat. None of these choices is likely to secure a parliamentary majority, raising doubts over his deficit-cutting agenda. Names already mentioned include Defence Minister Sébastien Lecornu, Labour Minister Catherine Vautrin, and Finance Minister Éric Lombard. Marine Le Pen's National Rally and the far-left France Unbowed are both calling for snap elections and even Macron's resignation. For now, the president has resisted.
France is preparing for major unrest. Aviation authorities are warning of nationwide disruption as protests against the government escalate into a general strike.
The French Civil Aviation Directorate says flight cancellations and delays will hit Marseille, Nice, Bastia, Figari and Calvi airports from Wednesday evening. The warning coincides with calls spreading online for a total indefinite boycott starting on September the 10th. The action is aimed squarely at Prime Minister François Bayrou and President Emmanuel Macron.
Yes, I decided to participate because this was the last straw in our outrage, and enough is enough. We have to share this with public service, with social justice, with climate and biodiversity, with people who are starving. And so I think this is the moment, and I feel like something different is happening. There's a great alliance that's starting to form.
A wide range of groups are mobilising, from climate activists to anti-globalisation movements. While organisers insist demonstrations will be peaceful, many warn the protests could block businesses and transport until the political system responds.
No, it's exaggeration to say we'll break everything. We won't break everything, but we will block them so that the political system reacts. Some have 10 pay slips, but the little workers earn €1,500 a month. And the bosses, everyone is rotten in any case. We live in a society of cheaters.
Analysts warn the scale of the mobilisation will depend on whether demonstrations remain peaceful. They say anger has reached across social classes, fueling comparisons with the Yellow Vest movement of 2019.
We don't know yet what's going to happen, but many people have made comparisons to the Yellow Vest movement that happened in 2019. And that also had a very similar flavor. It was grassroots, there wasn't a leader, it started on the right, it spread to the left. And so some people have tried to, certainly in this movement, have tried to capture the energy from the Gilets jaunes, from the Yellow Vest movement, to basically propel this one.
Unions, activists and citizens are now preparing to march on September the 10th, a day authorities warn could bring widespread disruption across France's transport network and test the government's ability to contain unrest.
France is in political turmoil after Prime Minister François Bayrou resigned following a failed confidence vote, sparking protests across the country. Now to unpack this development, we're returning to Klaus Jurgens. Klaus, thanks for staying with us.
Absolute pleasure. Yes.
Allow me to put a first question. What happened is dramatic enough, of course, but it's not unheard of. The government's being formed in France, they also collapsed. French President Emmanuel Macron should appoint the fifth Prime Minister in 2 years. The question is very basic. This resignation came after his austerity budget was rejected by the Parliament. What does it say about the public mood in France?
Well, yes. Thanks for having me again. I'll try to be brief. Now, if I may, typically German comment, go back a little bit in history. I remember, I'm that old, yes, François Mitterrand being elected as the socialist president of the Republic of France. And he basically said socialism is the way forward in a leather jacket walking on the beach. I never forget that image. And at that time, there was a socialist president. Later on, there was a socialist prime minister. Then the conservatives came, and there was a conservative prime minister. And if not what they call cohabitation, the The left cooperated with the right and the president with the left and what have you. There was a certain consensus. That was my first point. The second point, you might be surprised, I'm not going into the funny pages here, but I realized this myself, being in the countryside, and part of my family, of course, lived in Paris, as you may know. Now, in France, there was a saying that as long as our house inside is in order, we don't care if the shutters of our outside windows fall apart. Now, this was actually the same thing. Leave the politics to the politicians. And as long as they govern us well, as long as we have our roads, our income, our health, our security, whatever, all is fine. This was fine for some time. But then, of course, everything changed. European societies became much more multicultural, much more multipolar. The world was changing. 9/11 happened and what have you. And this peaceful living next to each other without actually talking about how can we really integrate, it didn't work. Now, France is just one example out of a long, long, long list. Now, one crisis after the other underlines that the politicians thought they can get away with everything because our public, they don't care anyhow. Yes, the 2019 Yellow Vests movement was mentioned, and rightly so. But this was one very, very rare exception from the rule that Paris is Paris, and these are the elites, and we just want to be left alone. Now people realize being left alone is the wrong solution. And even they are counting numbers and ticking the boxes. How many prime ministers in how many years? How many more years do we have to work? 62 to 64. Where are our savings? What happens to taxation? Why do we invest into Ukraine when we can't afford our own cleaning of the streets anymore? And this is a new generation. These are not 80 or 19-year-olds who said, oh, we've seen it all for 50 years and we know about it. No, this is the new middle class, and the middle class is uprising. And this is the interesting thing.
So, Klaus, protests are intensifying under the Block Everything movement. Do you see this growing into a nationwide movement similar to the Yellow Vests?
Again, I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but of course you can go onto the street and you can demonstrate and you can manifest for weeks or months as long as you have a stable income. This is unfortunately so true. The average trade union member, les syndicats as it is called here and there, they have to go to work to keep their salaries, their wages. They can't just disappear and say, hey, I'm on the street for the next 6 months and you still have to pay me. No, it doesn't go like this. I don't think it will be a nationwide movement, but I think tomorrow, 10th of September, will be rather big. I only hope that there will be no violence, as you mentioned. If there is no violence, it might go to many other cities, but I do not see it that it goes on into the winter. When I still lived in Paris, every December, the local tour and bus and tram and public transport operators went on strike to demand higher wages. Why? Because they knew if we blocked the system before Christmas and New Year, no one can travel. So they negotiated very cleverly. This was not violent, this was trade union policy, and fair enough. And people freaked out. And they said, how? I must go to school, I must go to work, I have to go to the airport, whatever.
Klaus,
but today it is different.
With your permission, allow me to put my very last question. We literally have a minute left.
Of course.
It's a couple of scenarios. You say that it's not going to spread into the nationwide scale. Probably President Emmanuel Macron is safe for now. It's a presidential republic. But there are two scenarios. One is he's appointing a new prime minister is forming a new government, and new government is considering a new set of measures. A second option is a snap election. Which scenario is likelier at this juncture, the way it looks?
Unless Emmanuel Macron's advisors tell him he will win and his movement, the combination of various movements will win, I don't think there will be snap elections. There will be a new prime minister, number 6, and what have you. And I think he will be very clever this time to appoint someone not from his own background, but from the center-left background to make sure that he actually gets away with it all. Snap elections, I would be extremely surprised.
Okay. Klaus, thank you once again for joining us. We're very grateful for your insights.
Pleasure. I hope I can help. Thank you very much.
Violent protests continue across Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, after Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned, with government buildings, courts and politicians' homes set on fire. Authorities are calling for calm and political dialogue.
Chaos continues in Kathmandu, Nepal, following the resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. According to the New York Times, protesters have set fire to government buildings, the Supreme Court, a special anti-corruption court, party offices, police stations, and the homes of top politicians. The unrest began over government attempts to ban major social media platforms, including WhatsApp and Instagram, igniting long-standing frustration over corruption, social inequities, and economic hardship. On Monday, security forces opened fire on demonstrators, killing at least 19 people and injuring more than 100.
This is the condition of Nepal. Oli should leave the nation. Many students died on Monday during the protest, and because of that, Oli should leave the nation. And students like us should continue to raise their voice.
Sharma Oli's resignation, along with several cabinet ministers, came as a response to mounting pressure. But the move has not calmed the streets. Security officials, including the army chief, have issued a joint statement calling for restraint and urging political parties to resolve the crisis through dialogue. Despite these calls, fires continue to rage across the Kathmandu Valley.
If this incompetent and corrupt government resigns soon and creates an environment for forming a new government immediately, then today's movement will gradually come to an end.
The protests highlight deeper issues in Nepal: high youth unemployment, widespread corruption, and frustration with an entrenched political elite. Even after the resignation, the country faces an uncertain path as young people continue to demand accountability and systemic change.
Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency are going to meet at the expert level in the coming days to discuss the new bilateral cooperation modality following the 12-day Israel-Iran war that targeted Tehran's nuclear sites. Artura Shirililiu has more.
Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai said that representatives from Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA will be meeting to continue their talks at the expert-level discussions about the future format of cooperation after Iran's civilian nuclear sites were bombed last June. Speaking at the weekly press conference today, following the third round of talks between Iranian and IAEA experts in Vienna on Friday and Saturday, the spokesman said that there are ongoing contacts despite of the legislation on suspension of the relations with the UN nuclear watchdog. According to Baghai, the IAEA has come to the conclusion that Tehran's views on a new mode of cooperation shall be heard and its concerns be addressed after Iran's nuclear sites under the UN safeguards were bombed by Israel and the US. The Iranian diplomat also termed as positive the talks between Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi and the European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas in Doha, Qatar last week. The Doha meeting took place after the European powers, France, Germany and the UK, which are signatories of the 2015 Iran Nuclear Agreement, or JCPOA, in a letter to the UN Security Council in August, referred their dispute with Tehran to the world body. Iran, together with China and Russia, which are also parties to the JCPOA, as well as Security Council permanent members with veto power, sent a joint letter rejecting the call by the European Troika on demanding return of Iran's nuclear sanctions. Moreover, Russia and China have proposed a resolution to extend Iran's nuclear sanctions exemptions for 6 months, and in the meantime, to continue negotiations over reaching an agreement with Tehran. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman said that in addition to China and Russia, there are other members of the Security Council which are not satisfied with the E3's move, calling for a snapback of the nuclear sanctions under Resolution 2231, which expires in October. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
And now an update to our top story. Following the Israeli strike targeting Hamas high-ranking officials in Doha, the group says that their ceasefire negotiation delegation has survived, according to Reuters quoting two Hamas sources. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister's office claims the attack was a wholly Israeli operation. Afghanistan and Turkmenistan are pushing ahead with major energy projects, including new power lines and the Tapi gas pipeline. The two countries say talks in Kabul mark a step towards stronger regional cooperation. Tamim Bahis has more in Kabul.
Afghanistan's Minister of Water and Energy, Abdul Latif Mansour, met with Turkmenistan's Minister of Energy, along with the head of the international TAP project and Turkmen ambassador. The two sides discussed major regional projects, including the transmission of 1,000 megawatts of electricity from Turkmenistan to Kabul, speeding up the TAP 500 power line, and advancing the multi-billion-dollar Tapi gas pipeline project. Minister Mansour emphasized Afghanistan's readiness to coordinate and fully support the implementation of these projects. He also reaffirmed the Islamic Emirates' commitment to strengthening bilateral ties, particularly in the fields of water and energy development. The Turkmen energy minister expressed condolences for the victims of the recent earthquake in eastern Afghanistan and praised ongoing cooperation. He said Turkmenistan is fully prepared to move forward with all agreed projects, noting that the international TAP electricity project is already making solid progress. Both sides concluded the meeting by stressing the importance of expanding relations and ensuring long-term constructive cooperation. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Uzbekistan has sent humanitarian aid to Afghanistan following the recent deadly earthquake, delivering food, medicine and blankets. Separately, the two countries signed a major $250 million worth energy deal to boost Afghanistan's power supply and infrastructure. Our Sevil Rajapova has more.
Following an earthquake in Afghanistan with a magnitude of 6, Uzbekistan sent humanitarian aid to assist the affected population. A convoy of 14 trucks departed from Tamas carrying nearly 265 tons of essential goods. The shipment included flour, rice, sugar, pasta, vegetable oil, beans and other food products, as well as medicines and more than 5,000 blankets. The cargo was delivered to Balkh province and officially handed over at the Hayratan crossing. During the ceremony, representatives from both sides highlighted the importance of timely assistance in times of crisis and emphasized that such cooperation demonstrates the strength of good neighborly relations. Alongside this, Uzbekistan's Ministry of Energy, together with Afghanistan's electricity company, Da Afghanistan Breshan Shirkat, signed a $250 million agreement to modernize the country's power infrastructure. The projects covered by this agreement include the construction of a 500 kilovolt transmission line from Suhan to Puli-Kumbui. The Arkhanty substation near Kabul will be expanded, increasing its capacity to handle imported electricity. In the east of the country, a new 220 kilovolt line to the Sheikh Misri substation will be built, along with the complete modernization of the Sheikh Misri substation in Kandahar province. Once completed, these projects are expected to allow Afghanistan to import between 800 and 1,000 megawatts of electricity from Uzbekistan. The new infrastructure will help stabilize electricity delivery to central and southern provinces, ensuring more reliable power for households, businesses and essential services. Together, these efforts underline a practical and steady development partnership between the two countries. It's Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
A new freight train service has been launched from Guangzhou, the capital of Guangdong province, one of China's most economically developed regions, to Istanbul. The route passes through Central Asia, the Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan and Georgia before reaching Turkey via the Black Sea. The inaugural train departed Guangzhou International Port on the 6th of September, carrying 50 40-foot containers with household appliances, clothing and other goods. The route marks a significant step forward in establishing a logistics corridor between Turkey and the Greater Bay Area, which encompasses Guangdong, Hong Kong and Macau. Work on the Azerbaijani section of the Zangezur corridor is expected to be completed next year. The head of the Transport Policy Department at Azerbaijan's Ministry of Digital Development and Transport, Fariz Aliyev, told journalists. He said the corridor holds strategic importance for Azerbaijan's transport system and will enhance transit cargo flows both along the east-west and north-south routes. Its development is expected to enable an additional 15 million tonnes of cargo to be transported via the middle corridor. Now, air quality remains a pressing issue worldwide, and Georgia is no exception. According to new data from the Swiss company IQ Air, Georgia holds an average position in global rankings. But how does the country compare to its neighbours, and what does this mean for the health of its citizens? Our correspondent has more.
New data from Swiss-based monitor IQ Air shows that Georgia ranks 72nd out of 138 countries for air pollution. That places it ahead of Armenia, Azerbaijan and Turkey, but behind Russia. Despite the ranking, pollution levels remain 3 times higher than the safe limit set by the World Health Organization. Experts point to aging vehicles, reliance on fossil fuels, and rapid urban growth in cities like Tbilisi, Kutaisi, and Rustavi. Still, the trend is improving. In 2023 and 2024, Georgia ranked 62nd place, suggesting some progress even as major challenges persist. Environmental specialists stress that real change will require systemic reforms, including investment in clean energy, sustainable transport, and stricter environmental regulations. And across the South Caucasus, similar pressures are mounting, with rising temperatures, industrial emissions, and water scarcity driving regional environmental concerns. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
Azerbaijan is rapidly emerging as a vital transport and logistics hub in Eurasia, with President Ilham Aliyev stressing the strategic role of the Zangezur corridor as part of the Middle Corridor. The route is expected to boost regional cooperation and connect continents, while projects like the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route are already demonstrating Azerbaijan's growing role in global trade. At the same time, international experts at the recent CICA forum praised Baku's efforts to advance connectivity, digitalization and sustainable growth. Now, to unpack the latest developments of the region, we're joined by Orkan Nabiev, a political analyst from Baku, Azerbaijan. Welcome to A News, Mr. Nabiev.
Thank you for your inviting me.
Now, President Aliyev described the Zangezur corridor as a vital link between continents. How central is this corridor to Azerbaijan's broader transport and connectivity vision?
The Zangezur corridor, now we can call it TRIP, Trump's International Peace and Prosperity Route, is at the heart of Azerbaijan's transport strategy. It connects mainland Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan and creates a shorter, faster link between Asia and Europe. As a part of Middle Corridor, it positions Baku as a key connector between continents. This corridor is not such a project. It's a foundation of Azerbaijan's ambitions to become a true Eurasian hub. So it's a vital and main Azerbaijan's transport strategy.
And will we realistically see the Zangezur corridor fully open and operational next year?
Honestly, no. Full opening in 2026 is unlikely. Azerbaijan is pushing construction quickly, but the section through Armenia has not started even. Turkey has only just launched the Kars-Iğdır Aralık Dilucu Railway and the multi-year project. So even if Turkish-Armenian normalization brings some political goodwill, the physical work will still take time. By 2026, we may see partial use, but between mainland Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan. But it will be mostly not very well prepared railway road. It could be some car road, but the full corridor will only be functional after more years, maybe 2 or 3 years of the constructions and agreements when started.
Okay, and a new train from China has just arrived in Baku via the Trans-Caspian International Transport route. How does this development complement the Zangezur corridor and strengthen Azerbaijan's logistics role?
It strengthens the middle corridor and makes Zangezur corridor more valuable. Each train from China shows that the Trans-Caspian route works. More trains mean more trust from business, from insurance company, from logistic companies, which will also need a faster alternatives like Zangezur once it's complete. The growth of today's China-Baku trains lays the groundwork for success of the tomorrow's Zangezur corridor. Now these trains use Baku-Tbilisi cars, but alternative roads will be more grateful for the businesses, for more logistic companies. So it will increase more and more the importance of Trans-Caspian route and Azerbaijan railway infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the recent CICA forum in Baku, think tank experts praised Azerbaijan's growing role in Eurasian connectivity. How important is this international recognition for Baku's transport strategy?
Recognition builds credibility and attracts support. When think tanks like at the CICA forum praise Azerbaijan's role, it sends a message that Baku's vision is respected internationally. This matters for investors, financial institutions, partner governments. Recognition ensures Azerbaijan's transport plans are not just a local ambitions, as I said in the previous question, but part of the larger regional strategy.
And Mr. Nabiev, beyond trade, what role does connectivity play in fostering political stability and cooperation in the South Caucasus?
Transport links can ease tensions. So trading is easier and safer than making war. It's safer than fighting. Share the railways and custom procedures make countries interdependent. If trains and trucks cross the border smoothly, disrupting them would hurt everyone. So current Turkish-Armenian normalization talks shows how the transports and politics can reinforce each other, even though opening the borders, making the very normalization process between the countries can create a credibility to each other. Corridors like Zangezur can become quite engines of peace and turning rivalry into cooperation.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see Azerbaijan balancing its transport initiatives between the east and west and north-south routes, and what synergies can emerge?
Azerbaijan is deliberately developing both east-west carriers goods between China and Europe, while north and south connect Russia and Iran with India. Azerbaijan sits at the crossing points of both, and Azerbaijan has no any intentions to have conflicts with any its neighbors, and all kind of the conflict situation can come from neighbors, but not from Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan tries to keep the balance being in the crossroad of the civilization, with the Alat hub, for example, acting as a interchange. So Iran, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Russia, all the Caspian Coast countries, and as well as from the China, Central Asia to Alat, and from Alat, as I said in the previous questions, and in my previous answers, can go to the west, to Armenia, to Georgia, to Turkey, and to Europe, as well as Russia, if they will took the normalization path with Azerbaijan, they can also use the north-south streams, north-south routes. Now we see that Iran is even not started the construction of Astara Resht, the road, but it also will be very crucial for Iran to start this project. As well as Iran can also use Zangezur corridor to have access to Black Sea and the Russian markets. So Azerbaijan tries to make the balance between the sides, between the and being in the crossroads can be being in the conflict, or it can be in the between of the collaboration and cooperation. Azerbaijan choose be in the collaboration and cooperation side.
Mm-hmm. And with Turkey working on the Kars-Dilucu line, which you mentioned earlier, how crucial is regional coordination to ensure the Zangezur corridor and related projects reach full potential?
Regional coordination is essential. So the new Kars-Dilucu line will only matter if it integrates with Azerbaijan's network and border system. Meanwhile, Turkish-Armenian normalization is successful, could reduce the bottlenecks and open extra options for connectivity. Coordination across borders is what turns steel track into the living corridor. And as I said, regional coordination is essential.
Now, Mr. Nabiev, some argue that geopolitical tensions in the region could affect these corridors. Do you think connectivity projects can also act as confidence-building measures?
As I mentioned before, yes, and they can serve as a confidence-building tools. When countries profit from moving goods together, they have shared interest in stability. This is where the Turkish-Armenian dialogue is significant. It's where the Azerbaijan-Armenian dialogue is significant. It's where the Azerbaijan-Iran dialogue is significant. Opening borders and normalizing the relations can multiply the benefits of the regional projects. Transport links may not solve every conflict, but they can make peace more practical than war.
And looking ahead, how might Azerbaijan's role in the Middle Corridor reshape its relations with the EU, China and other key partners?
It increased Azerbaijan's importance to both sides. The EU wants safe supply routes outside Russia and outside Iran, while China seeks a faster path to Europe. Azerbaijan offers both, and normalization in the region can strengthen its role in further. With the middle corridor growing, Baku becomes more than transit point. It becomes a strategic partner for China. It becomes strategic partner for the European Union, and being a strategic partner of both. Strengthening the region. It gives the region the more importance in the international geopolitics and geoeconomics.
Okay, Mr. Nabiev, my last question to you. From an economic perspective, what tangible benefits in terms of trade, volume, jobs and investment should Azerbaijan expect once these connectivity projects are fully operational?
The benefits are significant and long-term. More trains mean more income at the ports, more jobs in logistics, and more investment in free zones. Importantly, this diversifies Azerbaijan's economy beyond oil and gas. Once fully operational corridors like Zangezur or increasing the potential of Baku-Tbilisi cars will bring steady trade and opening new jobs and resilience to Azerbaijan's economy, and it will also really affect of the welfare, not only the Azerbaijani citizens, but all the regional countries' citizens.
Okay, Mr. Nabiev, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you for inviting me, and good luck.
And that's all we have for this bulletin. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.